Hello, guys, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Joe Acosta. I am a non-religious licensed minister, and for those of you who are new here for the first time, what that means really is that I do not follow the practices or denominations that many do. We have a lot of information that has been taught from physical understanding, and so we really miss what is going on. We pass this information down back and forth to new generations, but it doesn't produce the result that Christ said, you will know them by their fruit. Let's get into this. Now, I've been having a lot of technical difficulties, and this is probably the third time I'm my go at trying to record this. Now, let's get into this memory. Memory is a mental faculty. It's a tool. And we've been given this, and we don't use this to our benefit most of the time. Most of the time, if you listen to people's conversations, if you start to explain something new to them, they will revert back into a memory of what your conversation reminds them, or what took place reminds them of. It's always going back. Kind of like Lot leaving Sodom and Gomorrah and the angel saying not to look back, right? Or you turn into a pillar of salt, or his wife turned into a pillar of salt. Well, it's very similar because you become frozen there in time. And if you have bought and read this book, the one behind me, The Believer's Guide to Christ Manifested, and the link will be in the description, you will start to learn about the steel pot, as I describe it. And a steel pot is really what's happened with us. This is one of the reasons why I'm a non-religious licensed minister, because we are brought up within a steel pot. It's like growing an oak tree within that pot. And as it grows, it's only going to get so big. It's never going to reach its full potential. We are not often reaching our full potential. A lot of the thoughts and beliefs that we have, we did not evaluate. We did not originate, but we got them. And they are affecting our everyday life. And so learning how to change this and learning how to stop what is disabling you from going forward is vitally important. And this is why we're going to get into memory, because memory will work for you or it will work against you. And like I said, most of us, it's working against us. As an example, when my hand was broke and permanently damaged, it was stuck like yay. It was stuck. These two fingers wouldn't come down. And if I tried, it hurt and it went all the way down. The doctor said there was nothing they could do. Now, I went back and forth learning to accept that I was already healed. And it would start to take place. But the minute I remembered where it would go back. And I was stuck for the life of me of why it would go back and forth. So one day, I was on the drive and I started playing the guitar. In my mind, I played a song that I used to play on the guitar in my mind. And while I was on that drive, the last 10 minutes of that drive, I just played that song in my mind. And when I finished and I pulled over and parked the car, my hand was normal. And it's been like that ever since. When we hear somebody talk, when we hear a story, when they tell us what happened, in order for us to want to show understanding. Now you watch, Christ never did this. We do this as people because we believe that we need understanding. We do need understanding. We need understanding of the information and the knowledge that we are dealing with and that we are working with. We don't need to understand where they're at. You don't want to jump in the hole with them. You don't want to jump yourself into the hole with them because you're jumping in the hole too. And that is what is happening, the way your memory functions and how it functions with your heart, your subconscious, your heart of hearts. So you want to avoid that. Every situation is roughly going to be about the same. And it comes from lack of understanding and it comes from ignorance. Ignorance just means that they don't know. We're all ignorant to something. When we start to say, oh yeah, I understand because when years ago, and we start to explain our story. Now, what I just did is I formed a salt pillar for myself. I formed a salt pillar there for myself. I need to learn how to drop those things. I need to drop it because I can't go forward. Because if you remember how I was explaining the healing and the will, that memory, the memory is solidified within the heart. And it's not until we impress the new idea of healing and accept that, because that's where it needs to be accepted. It needs to be accepted within, but it cannot be accepted within while we still have this old wine that is damaged and was damaged. Now, I want you to understand something for a moment here. You often hear me say, it's a Proverbs 23:7, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. It's absolutely true. Guard thy heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life. Well, when we take something in there, it is like an anchor on a 20-foot cord. So you can only go 20 feet around that anchor until you lift and remove that anchor or become untied from it. Well, you can't, because those memories are there. Don't go into your past. Don't go. You don't have to explain to anybody what happened. You don't. It might make you feel better to talk about it, because it's like, it's what we teach. But you don't have to do that, because you can just let it go. You're not suppressing it. You're letting it go, right? We cast our burdens on him. And so we let it go. And we move ourselves into the new area. Now, my hand healed because I used my mind and I used my memory, which God gave us, in order to see where I was before. I used where I was, my memory of a perfectly functioning hand. And lo and behold, because that part of your mind, that part of your subconscious, your heart of heart, does not understand what is real and not real. It only understands what you impress upon it. And so you hear me say, when you watch a movie, you watch a scary movie, and you've seen it before, when you're in there and you're just involved in the movie, even though you've seen it, you know it's going to happen. And when it happens, you still jump. You still react. It's that part of your heart trying to protect you. When you are in a dream, that part is receiving all the emotions from the dream. It is your emotional mind. Okay, your emotional mind, which is that part, is also letting you know the thoughts that you're involved with. And so when you start feeling bad and you start feeling sad, it's because of the thought that you're involved with. Change it and shift it away. Shift it to something that you like. You have to have something that you are going after. You have to have something. If you listen to the last message that I wrote, and I had lots of trouble delivering that message because either the audio was missing, the camera didn't want to record it. It recorded it, but then it wasn't there. When I was processing it, clips were taken out. I don't even know how. When I uploaded it to YouTube, YouTube did not want to accept it. And it took me a long time. It took over a day. I was persistent. And so I got it up there. It's not all, some parts are still missing. And you can tell because it just clips out. And it was a bit of a struggle, but persistence. What I'm saying to you about memory, you do not want to hold a memory that is anchoring to you. It was a bad time. It was a bad feeling. It was lack. You didn't have enough. You don't want to be talking about these things. And if you do, you want to do it very short and very briefly. When a person starts going into their past, they start talking from memory. It's like they reach into a part of their heart and their emotion starts to feed them. They can go all the way from the time they were a child. They go, oh yeah, and then this happened. And their emotions is feeding them the memory of the thing that happened. And then they finally arrive, and here's where I'm at today. And you'll hear their life story like that. Well, you don't want to be there. You don't want to be that person. Stop telling your story. Now, I know that in church, we get into an idea of giving your testimony. Sometimes there's a greater testimony than coming out of a hole. Sometimes the best testimony is where you were at going for something, and in the details, God is in the details. You see how it took place, and there's no other way that could have taken place. If you heard me talk in the last video, I talked about the guy with the motorbike. He was injured. He was back in the mid 80s, late 80s. He had some Honda motorbike, and he was injured and sold the bike because he was never going to be able to ride again. Almost 30 years later, he wanted to buy. He got the desire for a bike, for the same bike, because he loved that bike. And so he went to see where if he could buy one, if there was one for sale. And there was one for sale locally. He went to go and try to acquire that bike, but as he called, it was being loaded up onto a truck because someone else had already bought it. So he missed it just by a little bit. He called the second guy. The second guy didn't know much about the bike. They had just bought the property. They got the house. They were in the process of remodeling. They found it in the barn or in the garage. He paid for the bike over the phone. He went down and he drove over 1,300 miles to pick up this bike. Loaded up onto his truck, went home. After a while, he got it running. Then he went to go register it at his Department of Motor Vehicles. That bike was registered to him. It was his original bike. Now, I'm saying that so that you understand how this works. When God puts a desire into you, it is already present first. What you have a desire for is already there. See, we don't teach this in church because we don't understand these things. The desire is there first. Then God wakes you up to it. Now, if God had woken him up a minute sooner, he would have, an hour sooner, with the desire, he would have got the one locally, and there would be no story that I'm sharing with you. But it was precise for him to miss it, for him to drive all the way down to pick up a bike, to work on it, to find out that it was his original bike. What are the odds of him buying back his original bike by accident? No accident. No accident. There's no coincidence. And that he got the desire when it became available. What are the odds? Unbelievable. And so God is in the details of these things. And so this is a story of a memory going forward of a thing that you grew into. And those are the ones that we really want to focus on, because those propel us going forward and they prepare us for the next piece of the journey ahead that unravels. Now, this man didn't believe anything before. He didn't believe in God. He didn't believe in anything. Well, that changed him around, because now his question was, how did this happen? And he went on a journey to try to find out how this happened. How could this even be possible? He didn't logically toss it away and rationally toss it away. Now, there's a difference to logic. Logic is found in the physical aspect of when our conscious mind shifts into the flesh. In the spirit, it's illogical. Flesh is always trying to figure out how we're going to add what in order to get to the next place. Spirit doesn't do that. Spirit doesn't need that. Spirit will just go there, and God supplies the rest. And it's only there in the end result where spirit stands. We don't understand this. We rationalize. Rationalize is when your emotions start talking to you. When the serpent talked to Eve, he rationalized with her. When the devil came tempting the Lord after he was baptized and the Holy Spirit led him out to be tempted for 40 days, the devil rationalized with him. It's not the truth. Sometimes it's very logically. The arguments from enemy side is very rational. It's very logical, but it's reasoning. I know this to be true. I know this to be true. This is what it is. And the emotions are pushed aside. The emotions must be pushed aside. Now, getting back to memory. Memory is the same way. Memory cannot be of when you were in the hole and you came out. Now, there's a gratitude that we have for being pulled out of the hole. There's a gratitude for being where we are right now. But we don't want to be like Lot's wife, looking back. We don't want that in our conversation, because if you have that in your conversation, you will anchor yourself down. Now watch this. We're going to go to Mark 8, verse 23 through 26. And this is where the Lord is working with a blind man. And he took the blind man by the hand and led him out of the town. And when he had spit on his eyes and put his hands upon him, he asked him if he saw aught. And he looked up and said, I see men as trees walking. After that, he put his hands again upon his eyes and made him look up. And he was restored and saw every man clearly. And he sent him away to his house, saying, neither go into the town, nor tell it to any in the town. Now, don't go into the town. Don't go back to the place where you were blind. Don't tell the other people, because the other people go, well, we remember when you were this. We remember when you... See, the blindness will live in the memory of other people. Your problems will live in the memory of other people, but they don't live in yours. If they don't live in yours, when God forgives you for something, it doesn't exist in the mind of God. Do not let it exist in your own mind. It may exist in the mind of another, bringing it back, but that's in their mind, taking up space and affecting their heart. Don't let that be yours. You can't teach this to everybody. A lot of people, you cannot, it's very hard to teach it to a logical person. But that is the way your memory works. Your memory can hold you back, or if you're injured, or if you are having a physical problem, you can remember when you were healthy. And that starts to take on. Understand this. Your DNA is a genetic map of you. It is the building blocks of how you are formed. It is your part of your subconscious that directs the rebuilding of you. Now, within 7 years, a lot of our body parts rebuild themselves within 7 years. Some within 2 years, some within 3 years. But within 7 years, you have a brand new body. Just like the earth. The earth regenerates every 7 years. So do we. Now, when a person has a damaged heart, or they have a damaged organ, when it rebuilds itself, it should rebuild itself back to the original code and map that was given. But it doesn't. It rebuilds itself broken. Why? Because within the heart, we have changed the damaged code, and we've believed that to be true. Now that boggles science. Absolutely does. So we get older because we believe we get older. We get older, and every time we're moving closer and closer to death, because it's what we believe. Logically, we have that embedded in us. And so we go through these things. This is why when a person gets bad news from a doctor, all of a sudden, that bad news that was from a doctor, they know where to apply it. They know someone, they've heard of other people, so then they start putting themselves in the memory of what they know of the other person. And so they start, even though it was the wrong diagnosis. It was the wrong, why I had just had a friend who had the wrong diagnosis. And she was almost going crippled. I mean, she was starting to need, she was going to need a cane to walk. And now she went to another doctor who said, no, that was the wrong diagnosis. This is what you have. Now she's back and she's in the gym and she's doing all good. See how that affects you internally. You don't want to talk to a lot of people or no one know what's going on with you physically. You can talk to your doctor about it, but you have to hold in your mind where you're going, that by his stripes you were healed. Now, memory, if you are going somewhere, the children of Israel had either one of two thoughts in their mind, either the one of Egypt, where they were slaves mentally and physically, but they felt okay there because they were used to it, or to go to the outside to what they didn't know. Well, when they were going outside to what they didn't know, the memory and the only thought that should have been in their mind was the promised land, a land of milk and honey. And if God said that I'm going there, then he is going to get me there. There is a place. When you receive the desire from God, there is a place. And it is already there. It is everything else that you've taken into your heart. All the talks, what you see and what you hear. We speak what the Lord say. We speak of the things we see and hear. He talks of the things of heaven. Everything that we see and hear is the only thing holding us back from going there. And when you start to understand this, you're going to find that the only thing that is limiting you is the thoughts and the limitation and the lack of limitation that we've impressed upon ourselves. It's the only thing holding you back. And that's something that we really need to learn. Back behind me are those two books, Let the Answer Sink In and The Believer's Guide to Christ in You Manifested. I suggest that you take these books and you read them and you study them and you read them over and over and over again. Because learning new information does not get in there and start making a change until it is embedded and it uproots what was there before, replacing evil with good. And as you start to do that, you'll start to watch and see physically the things that are happening in your life, and they change, and there's drastic change. A teacher of mine said you'll need a telescope to see in 1 year where you were at before. And it becomes absolutely true. You can't even imagine how you're glad that you're in the new place. I'm glad that I'm in this new place. But it is amazing to even glance back and remember where I was at. But you don't want to have it as a feeling memory. I hope you enjoyed this message. I hope you can grab a hold of this message and apply it to yourself, because it is necessary. If you're going to do any kind of growth, it is vitally necessary. It is vitally necessary, because remember, those memories are anchor downs. You do not want that. All right? Talk to you later.